Welcome to Video Games and the Blockchain. You're watching Crypto Finder TV. I'm your host Chris Stead, and we are here to explore the exciting space between blockchain and video games. We've got a massive show today. We've got new games, we've got banhammers, we've got a very cool exclusive interview at the end of this episode that you must hang around for with one of the biggest players in the blockchain space. Now, every single week we're on the show, we like to roll through some of the biggest news stories that have crossed our desk, and saying this week, let's start with news story number one, and it revolves around the mighty Apple. Apple has banned another crypto-related blockchain experience on its iTunes network. Now, this is the game War Riders. It's a bit of a battle we're starting to see here between the blockchain gaming ecosystem and the Apple ecosystem. So now, previously we've spoken about how Apple has banned on-device mining, which means any sort of game that was using the device's power to mine and uphold the blockchain. Now, this is definitely something to be concerned about, and I can see where Apple was coming from to begin with. Like, obviously there's a lot of nefarious apps out there who have been sneaking into the background, cryptojacking your phone, and while you're playing some very basic game, it's been harvesting the rest of your CPU power to mine the blockchain and earn these guys some money, right? Basically, effectively stealing from you. Now, this is something that we don't want. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of other games out there which are very transparent about the use of mining, who actually volunteer that information up front and say, hey, you can make some extra money while you're playing our game by mining some Ethereum in the background or something like that, or they're actually using it in more innovative and interesting ways to allow their game to function. So they may be upholding the entire multiplayer experience of their game on a blockchain, and your phone's power, a small percentage of it, is contributing to allowing the game to actually work. So it's a bit short-sighted banning it outright, and we've spoken about this before in the show in depth, but I feel that there is some concern there that is valid. They just need to make sure that people are transparent and allow people to actually have the choice about what they want to use on their Apple devices. Now, what we've seen is another problem arise from the Apple's use of the blockchain on Apple's devices. They also don't like non-fungible tokens, it turns out. Now, non-fungible tokens, as opposed to fungible tokens, are ones that can not be broken down. So when you look at something like Bitcoin, for example, it can be broken down to 0.000001 of a part to be in order to be sold and traded between people, right? But non-fungible tokens cannot be broken up, and that's really important in the gaming sphere because we have things that we don't want to be split in half. For example, a character or an epic sword or a skin, for example. So these are non-fungible tokens, and they're usually driven by the ERC 721 standard, or for those using the Engine cryptocurrency engine, using the new ERC 1155 token, which is also kind of using the non-fungible tokens. Now, Apple doesn't like them. Now, that's a problem for games like Cryptokitties and a lot of the other games that we've seen going big. Android does allow them. That's important to note because Android is getting a bit of a leg up here. Now, a new game had crossed our desk quite a few months ago, and we spoke about it at the time, called War Riders. Now, War Riders is developed by this new mob called Cartified. They've been around actually since 2015 in New York, and judging by their name, they're going to be certainly focused on car-related games, as is the case with War Riders. War Riders has this slogan, mine or die. It's kind of like Mad Max meets Twisted Metal, is kind of the idea I'm getting from this game. You are in a vehicle, like a Mad Max style vehicle, and you drive around this wasteland, shooting the hell out of other dudes, killing them, building up your influence. As you go, you mine the benzene, which is kind of the in-game fuel for your cars, but also is the cryptocurrency that drives the little ecosystem. By driving around and reaching certain, I guess, checkpoints as you go, that's how the mining process works. So I guess that active gameplay is what is upholding the economy. And then while you do that, you earn benzene. You also earn it from killing people, and then you use that to kind of buy garages around the lane, around the land. You use it to upgrade your car, get better weaponry, customize this thing completely until you got this really unique vehicle. And that unique vehicle is also stored in the blockchain and becomes an in-game asset that you own, which you can then trade with other players, and so forth and so forth. Right, so it's a reasonably cool sounding game. We'll show a trailer for you to show at the end of this little news piece. As you'll see though, the gameplay is at present remained hidden behind a CGI trailer. and that's potentially because it is doing an initial item offering. Now, this is where Apple has come into the picture. So Coinbase is one of the major exchanges in the cryptocurrency sphere, listed the Wall Rider vehicles in its wallet, which is an app on the Apple iPhone. All right, I don't know how Wall Riders guys, Cartified, managed to get into such a prestigious exchange. I guess in a who you know business, they knew who. Anyway, but they managed to get their initial items available through the wallet. Apple got wind of this and went, wait a second, Coinbase, you guys have got non-fungible tokens available through your wallet for people to purchase. We don't like non-fungible tokens. If you don't remove those non-fungible tokens, we are going to ban your app. Coinbase didn't want its app banned, so it removed Wall Riders from its wallet. And therefore, in doing that, it effectively banned Wall Riders from being on the Apple ecosystem. Look, I'm less concerned about this than I am about the complete outright banning of on-device mining. On-device mining, as I expressed before, has some benefits if it's transparent, whereas this is an initial item offering. It's a bit of a gamble from anyone who's involved. Yes, the game may be awesome in the future, but it's like a Kickstarter except slightly riskier because you don't have Kickstarter behind it. So I'm less concerned about this being banned, but still it shows that there's a lot of discussion that needs to be happen at Apple about how they're going to handle blockchain gaming, what blockchain gaming needs to thrive, and as I said, like Android is not raising these concerns, and that is therefore giving Android a bit of a leg up in this space that we are seeing boom quite significantly through the end of 2018 and definitely through 2019 and beyond. But anyway, as promised, we do have a gameplay trailer to show you. So this is Wall Riders by Cartified, currently scheduled for a 2019 release on PC. And yes, enjoy this trailer.
Our world was green and beautiful, and now it's just sand and salt. In this chaos, humanity has been pushed to near extinction and struggling to survive. All the memories I have left are filled with the sounds of roaring engines, the smell of gunpowder, and gun oil. All other form of money is gone, except benzene, the last digital currency on Earth. And all people do in this sandpit is kill each other for it. But hey, when it comes to me and what's mine, I'll do the same damn thing to get it. So if you see me on the sand, stay out of my way.
All right, so that was a new game from Cartified, Wall Riders. Again, 2019, we're expecting that to see a release. Okay, on to news story number 2. And this is a really interesting one. This is called The Sandbox. Now, The Sandbox isn't a game that I was aware about until recently, but it's been around since 2012 and gaining a really steady audience. I'll read you out some of the figures that were shown to me by the developer Pixowl. They've got 1 million players a month at present. They've had 40 million players played in total since 2012, and this game has created 57 million universes during its lifetime so far. Now, the game itself is like a Terraria-style experience, kind of like Minecrafty Terraria style experience where you're in this pixelated world, you're completely free to kind of experiment with the resources. You play kind of a god character who lands in this kind of randomly generated world, and you can then manipulate it. You experiment with things like lava and rain and those kind of natural resources, and experimenting with that changes the land in different ways. You can kind of build your own little platformers or shooter experiences. It's all 8-bit retro pixelated stuff. Obviously a lot of fun because a lot of people are playing it, and a lot of people having fun creating stuff in it. Now, the reason why this has crossed our radar now, so many years after release, is a new version of the game is coming out, an evolved version of the game is coming out, which adds a new 3D visual style, which I'll show you in a second. It looks great. And on top of that, it's adding blockchain technology. Now, blockchain is a perfect fit for a game like this. This is where people expend hours and hours of their time being creative. It's a form of creative expression, but they don't actually own it in a lot of games. At the end of the day, it's just sitting on a centralized server somewhere, and if someone flicks the switch one day, that's it, it's gone. In this case, the Pixowl are moving this game to a blockchain-based system where all the assets that you can create, and all the assets that you own, that you have in the game, you own and you can control, you have forever, and you can move and trade between players or allow players to access your world as you see fit. It's coming with a non-fungible token creator, which I think is a great idea. This means that you'll be able to actually, for example, if you want a particular type of item in your world to make that world work, you can create it in the creator and it becomes an actual token in this ecosystem, which you can then trade to other players. So if you create the coolest little trampoline jump pad thing ever, or some wicked sword, and everyone really likes it, you should be able to trade that and sell it within the ecosystem to other people who want to use it in their worlds. This should create a very, very, very big creative atmosphere as people start to feed off each other a lot more and have an actual stakeholder and investment in the actual end product. It's obviously going to have an online marketplace built around this as well that we're about to access. Now, the dev says it'll give players a chance to give a real value to their creations and allow people to build and trade their creations, which is obviously a big win. Now, it's also attracted attention from other people. Animoca Brands have since acquired Pixowl on the back of this news. Animoca Brands is probably someone you may not have heard of before, but they've been acquiring a few different people in the blockchain space. They've been involved with Cryptokitties, in particular getting Cryptokitties into China, but also moving that forward from where its current state now to a further state. In doing that, they're throwing some budget behind this game, some money behind this game, so it's going to help drive it to completion quicker, the new version to completion quicker, and also hopefully even provide some upscaling and some new features without delaying it in the process. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint. The interview at the end of this episode could involve someone from Animoca Brands who may have founded it. Anyway, hopefully that didn't give too much away. We're going to show you some footage right now. Basically, I've got an old version of the old trailer from the original version of the game in 2012, and I'm going to show you a new version of the trailer so you can see just how much it's changed. So let's start by rolling with the old version of the Sandbox by Pixowl. Alright, that was the old version of the Sandbox. As you can see, it looks like a lot of fun. Was a lot of fun. 40 million people played it, so it had to be a lot of fun. Now we're going to see how cool it is going to look when it's released in 2019 in the new version. So there you go, that's the new version of the Sandbox. As you can see, looking a lot sharper. Did you see that dude take down that crocodile with an axe? That's gameplay. All right, okay, moving on to news story number 3, and we're talking about Etheremon, which is one of the very first blockchain games to kind of make waves on the blockchain gaming space. It came out in December 2017, just on the back of the whole Cryptokitties phenomenon when it was kind of really in the news and in the media. Now, this is a game that is very much Pokemon derivative or a version of Pokemon. We're talking about Mons here, though, not Pokemon. In this particular world, you can capture these things, train them, evolve them, breed them, trade them, and sell them, as we've come to expect from lots of crypto collectible style games. The kind of difference here is that as you level up your creatures, they gain in value, they gain in real world value. You can set, there's only a set number of each, so there's a digital scarcity involved with these particular creatures. And also, only some of them actually can lay eggs, so you can't actually just breed them all as you willy-nilly. You kind of have to kind of hunt down ones that have the capacity to lay eggs and use that to kind of breed your future army of Etheremons. Now, the gameplay itself is more like a card collecting game than it is like your traditional Pokemon experience where you've got that 3D arena and you've got your turn-based attacks going in and whacking some poor creature. Whereas this game is more like two cards that have various attributes on them kind of clashing with each other, and that is how the combat takes place. The game's had a reasonably solid start. It's got about 8,000 active players at the moment, which isn't a huge amount by any stretch of the imagination. Like Call of Duty would just laugh in its face. But still, you know, it is a dedicated audience of people who are mining Emon, which is a national the currency involved with this particular game, and also helping to create some sort of demand for these Mon creatures. Now, what's just happened this week is the new adventure mode is released. This has been in the pipeline for quite a few months. We actually mentioned it on an episode way back, and that is now live. So the way this adventure mode works is that there are 108 total sites, and they're all based on places in the world. So there's like Amsterdam and the Eiffel Tower and, you know, the Great Wall and all these kind of like locations. And you can kind of bid to own one of these locations. Up to 10 people at a time can own any single one location. And then other players will then pay a fee to be able to visit this location. And that fee is then divvied up between the owners of the actual territory and also the developer of the game. No doubt takes a small cut as well. Why would players want to come to Amsterdam? Well, I think we know the answer to that, but if they do arrive there, they may also be able to get a reward for being there, and there's various percentages based on how you might be able to get rewards. So there's a 0.5% you might get a legendary Mon out of being there, up to 35% for an experience boost or a shards, or you might even earn some currency itself. You might actually earn the money back for actually going there. But it's kind of loot boxy, if you ask me. It's a bit of a gamble if you go this thing, but anyway, it's available now. They've got 54 of these sites are available now, with the other 54 becoming available in 2019. It's an interesting idea, allowing people to kind of have this stake on a section of the game world that they can actually earn a passive income from. There was a quote from the developer regarding the release of the adventure mode, which I'll read to you now or show you now. We believe the adventure mode truly demonstrates how blockchains can change the way people enjoy games, as no one can change or take away the site ownership from the host, even us as game developers. They become the true owner of the game, with a guaranteed income stream. Furthermore, we transfer the right of setting the game fee to the site host. We believe players should have a lot more say in the game. Now, that bit about allowing the 10 owners of any particular adventure site to govern the fee, I don't quite understand how that's going to work. Since there doesn't seem to be any change in the percentage chance of winning something. So other than the fact that you may really want to go to Amsterdam, you're not actually going to get any in-game benefit from going there, which makes me think that the fees available for going to the various sites will be more or less the same, because there's not really much winning to upping the price of it, unless there's some sort of achievement or reward for visiting all the sites that are available in the game, which may be the case. We do have a bit of a trailer to show you of that came out with the adventure mode. I keep saying adventure time. Jeez, it's on the brain. Anyway, have a look at this. This is Etheremon's adventure mode. Okay, so that's Etheremon, the adventure mode. Okay, on to news story number 4, and I'm quite interested in this one. I've got a fair bit to say about it. Crypto Space Commander has sold out. Now, I am old enough, I'm a dinosaur, I remember what it was like to have a game sell out when you'd go down to the store and they didn't have any left. And there was nothing much you could do about it other than either wait for them to order in more stock or go to another store, right? But like something could become non-available. Other than hardware, I cannot remember the last time that you couldn't just buy a game because everything's digital now, right? Okay, but that's going to start changing now when you've got the blockchain-based games, because things create the whole concept of this item ownership and having a value with the items is that they're actually rare, and the blockchain allows that rarity to be proven, and that therefore increases the value of things. So that if you have a particularly legendary monster or a particularly hard to get spaceship, in the case of Crypto Space Commander, then you've got it, other people don't have it and they can't get it unless you decide to sell it to them, and that creates a value, right? So we just saw that actually with that last story with the Etheremon, right? So there's only 108 sites and there's only 10 people that can be involved in those sites. So once there's 1,080 people involved, that's it, right? So it will sell out at some point. And then it'll become a case of whether you can buy it or not. Now, Crypto Space Commander is developed by Lucid site, formed in 2015 by a bunch of industry vets. These guys have been doing quite a number of games. They're doing the MLB Crypto Baseball game, which we're going to talk about in the next news story, which is doing really well. They're also doing Cryptic Conjure, which is another game we've spoken about. This one is built on the Unity engine. It's out in December. It's an MMO space exploration game. Looks a bit 4X-y in the way that it kind of, I guess, builds that universe out, but not in the fact that it's turn-based. All the game assets are non-fungible, right? So everything in the game is a token that can be owned by you and sold on by you or traded on however you see fit. What I like about this game is it's kind of like a No Man's Sky meets Eve style scenario. We're talking about 900 star systems. The furthest star system is 50 light years away from the center of or where you start the game. There's 16 ship types originally when the game launches, but that's going to move up to 50 after the game. And it also, from what I can read, it sounds like they're probably going to add in more star systems down the track too. Obviously, the mining process of the blockchain is very transparent in this game. You're going out and you're mining resources and you're using those resources to kind of build out your vessels, build bases, and kind of build out the world in general, moving further into the space, finding new planets, new spaces, new asteroids, things to mine, everything. What's really cool is this game is going to create this MMO experience of specializing. So you will level up down a certain type of path, the way you like to play the game, become very specialist. So you might have the best mining facilities for a certain type of resource. You might have the fastest ship to get through space, and you might have built a really cool trade route that you've worked out that allows you to get from A to B in a really fast amount of time. You could be a pirate. You could be a bodyguard who's actually protecting something from pirates. There's all these different types of roles you can play in this game, and that sounds to me like pretty cool, especially because you can set up smart contracts within the game to do to empower people to do things on your behalf. So if you have X amount of modules free on your spaceship and you want to get a brand new awesome gun because people keep raiding you on your trade lines and you want to get a more powerful gun, and to do that you need 10 of some really hard to get resource, but you meet another player, or you put out this smart contract that says, hey, if you can get me these 10 components of this resource, I will pay you a version of the in-game currency. And then that smart contract becomes all automated, and when player A comes and delivers that resource to player B, the payment gets made in the background and the universe continues to go on nice and pretty. Now, so what's happened here is they've had an IIO, so that's an initial item offering as opposed to initial coin offering, where they're offering these super rare versions of certain spaceships out to try and raise some funds for the game's development. Now, these particular ships will be very, very rare. There'll only be 20 in existence of each of the ones by the time the game finally comes out. And if you bought it on the pre-sale, you got this kind of a special a clause where if the ship is destroyed, you can a repair of that ship for free. Otherwise, I think if you lose your ship out there, it's gone and you're starting again. So obviously that was quite alluring for people who have been caught up in the possibilities of this game. So much so that the most expensive one went for 83 Ether, which is about US 25 grand at the time. So that's how much people have invested in these ships, to the point where they've now sold out of ships and you can't buy any more. So if you just listen to all of that and you're like, damn, I want in on this game, I want to get the spaceship, and be ahead of the game. Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but at this stage it looks like you're out of luck. That is a concept we haven't had to face in a while in video games. You cannot play it. That's a bit of a shame. So what do we think about this? The first questions that came to my mind is, what do we think about the idea of having to bid your way into a game? Do we want that kind of prestige? Do you want to go, hey, I'm one of the 1,080 people that own an Etheremon site, or I am one of the 20 people in the world that can own this ship? Is that something that we want to be able to bid on with real money, with actual cash, to have that kind of prestige? Or is it that like creating some sort of like tennis club environment where, you know, like you've got to try and fight your way into the in crowd to get in there so you can hit a, you know, tennis ball with a racket? What if someone dies and no one knows their passcode? What happens to that ship? Does it just sit there on someone's hard drive for the rest of all time? Like, how are they going to manage that? Do we want that in our video games? Is that a cool feature or not? Is there going to be some crazy like hardcore game that goes off in the future and someone's going to try and hunt down like someone's house and break in and get on their hard drive just to find this dead dude's passcode so they can try and unlock some ship they really want? Am I going too far on this? Probably. Anyway, but is this where this kind of concepts could head? Or is it just really cool? Is it just really cool? If you've got 25 grand, you want to spend it on a ship and play a game, like, is that something that allows you to be part of an experience you otherwise wouldn't be? I know there's some pretty obscene levels at places that people have gone to in Eve, and man, the people who play that game love that game. So anyway, that is what Crypto Space Commander has ended up at the end of its pre-sale. It is sold out of its ships, which is great. What are they going to do next? Are they going to release some more ships? I think they probably or they'll find something else to release, maybe a couple of planets that people can get in on early. I don't know. I reckon they're going to find some way, because after that success, hey, why not get more money? So they probably will do that. Anyway, if you haven't seen anything to do with a Crypto Space Commander yet, take a look at this trailer and see if you're going to wait out for that, whatever happens next. All right, there's Crypto Space Commander. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. At least there's a lot of depth there, at least. And if they get this MMO concept right and create a world there where people have been able to specialise and actually make a bit of income from it on the side, it's really quite interesting, really kind of cool. Okay, on to our final news piece for today, and it's about the big bucks. People are making money on crypto collectibles and various things like that. Now, last week we spoke about Gods Unchained. We championed their success when they sold one of their cards. It's a collectible card game, Gods Unchained, and they sold one of their cards for 63,000 US, which is the second biggest amount of value ever spent, or biggest amount of money ever spent on a card from a collectible card game, only beaten by the Black Widow card from Magic the Gathering, which has been around for 25 years. So that shows you just how big this crypto blockchain collectible thing is getting. Now we've had more wins this week. We've seen more things, more extravagant amounts of money spent. I'm going to start with MLB Crypto Baseball, which is kind of the big one. This is also developed by Lucid site, the guys that do that Crypto Space Commander game we're just talking about in the last news segment. Now this has a mass installed audience already because it's an official game. It's MLB. We know how big MLB is over in the States, so these guys have a huge audience to get involved with. It's kind of a very cool concept too. What they've done is they've kind of combined the idea of owned crypto digital assets with fantasy sport, right? So what you do is you bid or trade or otherwise buy various players and teams and facilities and these other types of things where you're in with the baseball, kind of any sort of baseball, real world baseball scenario, and you collect up your little team, and then you field your team, and then your team earns various kind of points based on how those real players and real locations performed in the real version of the MLB that week, right? So that's how the fantasy kind of element ties in. So that if you therefore want to kind of like if someone gets injured or is out of form and you want to kind of trade them on, you're going to have to try and find someone who's going to actually do that with a real world cash and go, you know what, I'll swap you out with this dude because I reckon that guy's going to come back real strong or whatever it wants to be. So I'm not sure how many of you guys have been involved in the fantasy sport games before. I have, and that kind of draft concept and ability to kind of swap players in and kind of look into the crystal ball and work out how players are going to go and is really involving, really immersive. People are really, really into it. And this game kind of allows that to be monetized in a really interesting way. It allows you to kind of invest in these things and really own them, but also potentially earn from it if players go well. So if you manage to pick that cool rookie who does really, really well, you could earn some serious cash out of this thing. The pre-sale's gone really well. The LA Angels, the team, was sold for 68 Ether, which is US $20,000, and then the season trophy, just the trophy for this season, was sold for 69 Ether, so just a slightly bit more than that. That just shows you what people are spending on this. I don't know if that's actually the baseball players themselves going, hey, you know what, I'm going to own my team, or I'm going to own myself in this world because we know how much money they've got, or whether there's the actual fans getting in, but that's some serious dough getting spent there. So that's kind of a big win. Elsewhere, we also saw this week, a Cryptokitty was sold for 600 Ether. So that's it was $172,000 US at the time at which some random person bought this cat. And then they put it straight back up for sale, which is very weird. And the Ethereum price then dived, so they lost out big time there. I'm going to show you what this cat looks like. So check this out. That's it. That's the cat. $172,000 for that. I can draw a better cat than that. So if you've got a cool $170,000, I'll do a half price for you. I'll do it half price for you. Just come see me. But yeah, that's the world we live in. That's what people are spending for cats like that with a dragon tail. It's called the Dragon, by the way, if you want to look it up and make a bid. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look here, a closer look at MLB Crypto Baseball, because out of the two games I just spoke about, that's the one that I'm actually really excited about. I think that the whole concept here could take on. I think we could see other games play in this space in the future. And as you can see from the money that's already been invested in it, people are taking it seriously already. And make sure you stick around after this walkthrough of what the experience is like, because after this, we've got a special guest coming in to talk about the future of video game tokens.
Hey guys, welcome to Lucid Site Dev Diaries. I'm your host, Paulina Shafir. Today we have an exciting episode for you guys. We are officially starting our pre-sale for MLB Crypto Baseball. That's right, you heard it. MLB official collectibles offering true digital ownership to all baseball fans out there. This is super exciting because MLB is the first big household name to utilize the blockchain tech in a game, and we're excited to bring you this new experience for all of you baseball fans. We're gonna go over a few things today. First, we're gonna talk a little bit about gameplay. We're gonna go into Marketplace, where can you find these collectibles and how to purchase them through the blockchain. The first thing you guys need to know is that MLB Crypto Baseball offers true digital ownership of these assets to all of you baseball fans. That means you'll be able to keep these forever. So how do you play? You'll be able to collect official MLB digital collectibles based off of real players that have rarity and stats based on events that occur in live MLB games. So what's the core game loop? First, select your team. Pick your strategy in setting up your game card with a roster of players and play along with live MLB games to earn rewards and climb up to the leaderboard. You need to hurry and get these because 2018 generation is finite. I bet your next question is, well, how many are there? 500 collectibles per team. Others will be generated based off game events. So make sure that you lock in one of these 15,000 collectibles before they're gone. At the start of our pre-sale, we will release one 2018 MLB Crypto inaugural collectible. There will only be one of these ever generated and sold on a reverse auction. That's why it's very important to make sure that you're prepared in having Ethereum before the pre-sale starts. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the marketplace. Once the initial run of this pre-sale sells out, the only way users will be able to acquire new collectibles is through other players on the MLB crypto market. So what does this mean? This marketplace allows you to buy and sell your collectibles to fill out your game cart and complete your set. So how do you get Ethereum? Well, let's take you through a few steps. First, get onto a trusted website like Coinbase for you to get the Ethereum. What you would need is a credit card or a bank account. Purchase as much crypto you think you need. Second, you'll need to download MetaMask onto your browser. MetaMask supports multiple browsers: Opera, Brave, Firefox, Chrome. You choose. Step 3. After you've gotten your crypto from Coinbase or from another trusted website, and you install your MetaMask wallet onto your browser, the next step is for you to take the Ethereum and transfer it to your MetaMask wallet. That way, when you go to the MLB Crypto Baseball website, you'll be able to purchase a collectible. Coinbase will ask you, where do you need to send this Ethereum to? That's where your MetaMask address comes into play. Make sure that you use the exact address that is located in your MetaMask wallet. And be sure to double check always. At that point, you're ready to start shopping for MLB Crypto collectibles. Step 4. Visit MLBCryptoBaseball.com and hit the marketplace. Make sure that you're signed in to your MetaMask wallet. You'll be able to see the prices of each collectible if you are. Pick and choose your teams if they're still available. Double check FAQ, this video, or any resources on our website in case you have any questions. After you purchase your MLB Crypto collectible, you'll be able to see your inventory or your players in the Players tab. Another good way for you to confirm your transaction went through is to look on the Etherscan. The Etherscan is provided to you right after you confirm your purchase. This will redirect you to the Etherscan website where it will show you where the Ethereum went to and what is the end address. That end address should be a contract address that is ours. That's all for this video. Congratulations, you just got your first MLB digital crypto collectible, and you have true digital ownership of it. Our next video, we'll be talking to our game designer to let you guys know about more specifics of how the game is played, how rewards work, and how all of these events are tied to the real life MLB baseball games. Visit MLBCryptoBaseball.com, follow us on Twitter at MLB Crypto, Facebook at MLB Crypto, and you can check us out on Telegram and Discord. Links will be in the below description of this video. Let's play ball!
Hello and welcome back to Video Games and the Blockchain. You're watching Crypto Finder TV, and I've been joined by a very special guest. It's Yatsu from Animoca Brands. Now these guys have been heavily involved in the blockchain gaming space, especially over the last year or so. So we're going to have a big chat about some of the titles you've been working on, Cryptokitties, the Sandbox, and also I'd love to get some of your thoughts generally on the NFT, non-fungible token future, and a few other bits and pieces that I've got that I'm going to try and catch you on. We'll see. So just with Animoca, like you guys have been formed in 2011, is that correct?
So the original Animoca was formed in 2011, and Animoca Brands spun out and actually went public in Australia in 2015.
Right, and so when did you guys start leaning towards the blockchain gaming space?
Really fairly recently, about at the end of the year, basically essentially through Cryptokitties.
Right, so can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with Axiom and the developers of Cryptokitties? Like, how do you guys work together?
Yeah, so actually the relationship really started because we were acquiring a business in Vancouver whose co-founder is also the co-founder of Cryptokitties. Right. And that's basically how it started. Then we ended up basically getting the distribution rights for China, and now it's morphed into a sort of full-on sort of where we basically help them find other distribution partners, like for instance the recent HTC deal that was announced, where we basically distribute Cryptokitties on HTC phones, originally with the U12, then the Exodus, and then potentially on other HTC devices as well.
Right, so it started with the movement into China, and now you've kind of got a bigger,
expanding it, and we're sort of working very closely on other kind of deals as well.
And was there anything particularly about Cryptokitties? Obviously, it was a big success in that early December period.
Right.
Was it based mostly on kind of your involvement in that, based on, wow, there's an actual audience for this here? Or is that what kind of?
I think what really excited us was the concept of the NFT. I mean, that was the thing that was sort of said, wait a second, you can actually do that. Digital scarcity is a real thing online, which was something that wasn't possible before the blockchain. So that was really excited us. I mean, one has to remember that Cryptokitties, despite its incredible financial success that it enjoyed, especially in the beginning, still we're talking about a small audience, right? Now imagine if that audience ends up actually being the size of the gamer audience. That's like, wow, right? And then the other thing that also got us super excited is it sort of awoke us not just to the potential of blockchain and NFTs, but also why aren't gamers more involved in blockchain, right? And isn't that a way in which you can onboard more people to the blockchain? Because they should get it, right? They should understand virtual currency ahead of everyone else. People were gold farming in World of Warcraft and buying sort of coins and items well before any of this happened, right? But of course, they were not non-fungible.
Yeah, so we're seeing a bit of that kind of, I guess, resistance to what is possible.
Right.
I think because people think about things like the loot boxes, or they think about things like the microtransactions. I mean, when
right.
I was there at E3 when Microsoft first announced the microtransaction concept, and
right.
they said on stage, for you'd be able to buy things for as little as 1 cent.
Right.
But of course, you know, everything's been $8, $9, $10. Yeah. So I think people kind of, they get standoffish. They get standoffish about crypto. They think blockchain. They think crypto. Have you found? Are you guys preparing internally to how to confront this barrier?
So we have, so even within our own company, you know, we have a camp of people who are like, wow, this is the future, this is cool, we got to do this. And we do have our skeptics, right? And I think it has a lot to do with the way that gaming has evolved, because if you think about games today, all of them are typically walled gardens. And so the content designer, when you especially go through the traditional thinking of design school, game design, many people think of, I've created a journey. This is the way that you should experience the game. It's a bit like a book of sorts, right?
Yeah.
And so you go through that journey, and if it actually sort of moves weirdly, then that's not really intended. That's not necessarily a good thing. So a lot of people are worried about the fact that the economy might get screwed up because there's a fine balance, there's a fine art. But actually, you know, the example that I like to put out is look at Minecraft. It wasn't really designed to be sort of a game in a classical sense. And it just became a community involvement, and it just morphed into this beautiful, wonderful thing. And had it been on the blockchain and had there been NFTs, it could be actually even much more interesting. I think one of the things that gamers really want, and sometimes they forget, is they want agency over their own game, right? I mean, just think about what happened when World of Warcraft was like, you know, Lands of the Pandaria update, right? It was like, what was that? What was that? Because they had no ownership of the game. They had no way of sort of directing the decision, the creative decision. It still came top down. It was sort of quasi-dictatorship style. In fact, many game designers are dictators in their own way. But what if, you know, on the blockchain, you actually had the ability to basically co-own or own a part of this, and your vote actually mattered, which is possible to do, for instance. That's a great benefit. If you want to go in that direction, you can do a token vote, for instance. And if you don't agree with it, you can buy a part of that economy, for instance. So there's many aspects, not just NFTs, but just the way game governance could be run. It was super exciting, but people don't quite get it because it's never been really done before.
Almost the word token is part of the problem, I think, because a lot of people don't really, a lot of gamers just don't get it. And and the difference between a coin and a token, and the way that things, and you know, a lot of the, I guess, initial press and media about this was around people getting crypto jacked, having their systems used for mining. I can't buy a graphics card anymore because of these bloody crypto miners. That type of thing. A lot of negativity.
That's true, but you know, I think you go through these phases, obviously, because there's been sort of so much sort of speculation going on.
Yeah.
But if you recall back in the sort of, you know, mid-90s, you know, the internet had kind of the similar kind of sort of reputation. In fact, when the dot-com bust happened, I remember people saying, internet, that was a scam. They were comparing it to the sort of the Dutch tulip bubble, right? People saying that wasn't the real thing. And look today, right? Yeah.
So obviously breaking into China, you guys had a bit of an experiment with the Steph Curry, I guess Cryptokitty-like. How did that experiment go? Would you consider doing something like that again in the future?
So the Steph Curry had nothing to do with China. So that was a different licensing issue. The China thing is we were basically looking to launch Cryptokitties on mobile in China. And that has been an interesting experiment at the moment. And we're sort of getting ready for that. I think what's happening in China, there's a lot of questions around sort of regulation and so on. But right now in China, the issue isn't about sort of so much trading digital cats in this case. It's much more about sort of being able to sort of trade and buy sort of Bitcoin and Ethereum and ICOs in particular. So we're not doing any of that kind of stuff. So it's not really a concern for us. But there are many questions about sort of what that means from a sort of regulatory standpoint still, particularly when you're doing an ICO. But again, when you're trading sort of items on NFTs, we don't think that's going to be a big deal.
We've seen Apple, I guess, do a couple of things in recent times to be, I guess, negative towards what blockchain gaming can produce. I wouldn't mind getting your thoughts on that, being that your company has done 200 games or apps or something.
We've done hundreds of games and apps on both Google Play and the App Store. And in fact, our most successful game right now, which is not a blockchain game called Crazy Defense Heroes, is currently sort of generating millions of dollars of revenue on Apple. Yeah. So we're definitely working closely with Apple, and we have great respect for what they do. So
when I looked at the ban on-device mining, with the Apple put in, and I could see kind of one side of it, like, a bit of protection there for people. Yeah. But when we looked at so many games that are coming out now, which have, mining as a concept of just upholding a blockchain, allowing games that use the blockchain to run, I thought, gee, maybe that's a bit short-sighted. Like, what's your view on that?
Well, I think, particularly in the perspective from Apple, and I think that's also an opportunity for other companies like HTC, I'll get to that, but for Apple is, they are really sort of wanting to make sure the end user has the best experience possible. And so they don't know that people, if someone's actually mining on the background and eating up all that sort of, GPU or CPU time, then maybe other apps will actually get sort of affected and affect the user experience. So this is a very sensitive topic for Apple.
Yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure that a phone necessarily needs to have the ability to mine. Of course, you can't mine that much in comparison to, if you really want to mine, then you should go get your GPU or go an ASICs Mint or whatever, right? However, if you look at the opportunity, though, there's that maybe another provider might want to do that. And I'm not sure if HTC will do that. That's certainly not in the plans that I've seen.
Yeah.
However, maybe there's other phones that will be specifically blockchain friendly. And that's, again, there's a bit of a paradigm shift going on. So that's why HTC is in it as well. It's saying, there's a new perspective to look at things, not just for dApps, but maybe other things that you can do in the device. And so to me, this is just a world of opportunity.
So it doesn't affect the way, we've also seen last week, we've seen Wall Riders, which is a non-fungible token, get removed from the Coinbase wallet because that didn't agree with Apple's policies.
Correct. Yes.
And that was an opportunity for people to buy vehicles within the game. There was obviously a bit of a pre-sale IAO involved in that.
Yes.
But again, it kind of talks to how Apple is seeing this blockchain gaming space and is not exactly sure how to deal with it.
So the way I would look at it is, we think we have a solution on this. Can't really discuss very openly about what that is right now, but we are about to launch our own product called Wallet Pet on the App Store. And if that gets approved, then that could be a blueprint for how other crypto and blockchain games might get approved on the App Store.
And this is with a 721 ERC token style experience?
We've got NFTs, we've got tokens, we've got things in there. So it should be interesting.
Okay, so I do a lot of research for the show, obviously.
Yes.
You like to think, anyway.
Of course.
And one of the things, having spent so long working in, I guess, the traditional gaming media, where we're fed a lot of assets, we get a lot of video footage. Even when Kickstarter came along, the Kickstarters for the most part were pretty advanced. There was stuff going on there. So much of what I see in the blockchain gaming space is pie in the sky, very early concept art, no video. Sometimes the developers don't even have names. Sometimes formats aren't even announced.
Yes.
I'm saying sometimes, probably about 60, 70% of the time.
Or maybe more. Yes.
Yeah. So which is very challenging, not from just a coverage point of view, but just for trying to break through and get through to these hardcore gamers.
Yes.
How much damage do you think it's doing having kind of these types of experiences in the scene at the moment?
Remember, when we're talking about the dApp activity space, we're still talking about a small number. So I don't think it's that damaging. And even if, and I think in fact, because Cryptokitties is a very polished experience, a lot of people still use that as an example because it looks good. It's got marketing material, it's got write-ups, it's very clear and easy. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about the blockchain space, which is not that dissimilar from the original sort of when the smartphone came out, is a lot of the developers who are making games are not actually gamers. Right? The blockchain guys, right? They get the blockchain, they understand it, but they actually haven't made games. And then they're trying to bring game developers to come in and they're like, wait a second, we don't do it this way. So that's kind of that early friction point. And that's why we think it's an interesting moment for us, because we're actually an established game company that's actually going into blockchain. We have to struggle a little bit internally, but externally we're basically trying to bring it all in. And we can then add quality to it, right? So if you look at, for instance, take a look at the Sandbox, the material around the Sandbox, you know, there's videos, there's actual assets that you can take a look at, the voxel builder.
50,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel.
I mean,
so.
it looks good, it is good, because it's actually designed by gamers, right? And so, you know, the team in Argentina under Artur and Seb have done an incredible job because they understand what gamers look for. So that's just a natural evolution. But of course, you need the sort of innovators that start, you know, the blockchain guys who basically experimenting. But when you tell them, hey, you need to make it look sort of like a real game, they're like, what does that mean? You know, they don't understand that. To me, it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of when, sort of if, but just when.
Yep. And so you just spoke about the Sandbox there, which was a recent acquisition. You guys acquired Pixowl.
That's right.
So what led to that acquisition, and what do you guys look for when you're looking at? I mean, are you going to make more of these acquisitions?
Yes, we plan to basically acquire anyone who's interested and does really sort of cool sort of content on the blockchain. It's just kind of a direction.
Mobile specific?
No, but mobile is obviously, you know, so the thing that we're trying to address as well is sort of how do we get more adoption as well. And so mobile is important in the question of adoption. It's why we did the deal with HTC, because it's something that you carry around with you everywhere, right? A PC and a web browser using MetaMask is an adequate technical experience, but it's difficult. I mean, if you want to trade a CryptoKitty, you got to set up MetaMask. That is not straightforward for the end user. You want to be able to just open the app and go.
It's an immediate barrier.
Exactly, an immediate barrier. And so that's why
even I'm distanced. As soon as I see the MetaMask thing, I go.
So it's like, I got to do MetaMask. You can log in, you can do your stuff, and that's the thing that mobile gaming can sort of, for instance, remove that friction point and why it's so important. But there are challenges to overcome, and we think the game companies know how to do that. So why did we basically buy Pixowl? First of all, it's a talented team. They're one of the few game companies that are making content that understand blockchain, that also understand games. Right? If you think about that intersection, there's not that many of them, right? So that's one. So we feel incredibly fortunate that we were able to do this acquisition. The second thing, of course, is that they have an existing audience. So the Sandbox is not exactly sort of a brand new game that nobody's ever heard about. It's like it has roughly 1 million plus users on it, had 40 million installs over its lifetime. And the difference about Sandbox, much like Minecraft, is they're all creators, because in order to play Sandbox, you have to be a creator, right? That's very different when you have 1 million creators doing stuff versus actually sort of, you know, 1 million passive players enjoying an existing world. So that in itself, I think, has incredible potential, and that's why we like this deal a lot.
So immediately lends itself to non-fungible token concept.
Absolutely, right? And then they have an NFT builder, so you can basically build NFTs inside the Sandbox, but then maybe potentially export it. So there's it's a very sort of strong tactical acquisition.
And they were already, I assume, already looking at redoing the engine and creating kind of the 3D
it's already well on the way.
It's
already well on the way.
Has your involvement now increased their budget, allowed them to expand their scope, rush forward with the release?
Basically, our involvement is not just rushing forward with the release, but also getting the partnerships in place for distribution. You know, they plan to do basically sort of a private sale in the future, basically with Sand, which is their token, and, you know, potentially maybe even with NFTs. And we have several projects like that that's sort of cooking in the back as well.
And will this tie into the Wallet Pet concept as well?
So with Wallet Pet, we basically designed a sort of a wallet backend where you can basically store your tokens as a game engine. We're launching it first with Wallet Pet. It works in Unity for the time being, and we basically roll it out on pretty much all of our games in the future.
Right, so a lot friendlier UI that's game token focused.
Yeah, I mean, Wallet Pet's first initial design when we first announced it was about creating an experience that a non-blockchain user could go onto the blockchain, right? So, you know, there's only 30 million wallets around the world if you think about it. It's kind of crazy that all of this blockchain activity is really just 30 million wallets. So we're not really interested in sort of dealing with, I mean, of course we like them, but we don't need to fight for those 30 million. It's about bringing the next billion on board. So like it's making the whole entire game experience organic, so that you're not really necessarily thinking about wallets, you're just seeing a UI, just play it, and you have the reason.
It makes sense.
Exactly, and the utility is the game itself.
So, you know, one of the other big players, I guess, in this space is Engine, and we've been, I guess, seeing a lot of interesting stuff coming out of them. I don't know if you consider them a competitor or a fellow pioneer. I think a fellow pioneer is probably the more correct approach. They've been doing this for a while. So they've been looking at the 1155 token and the ERC standard they've come out, which is supposed to be a a new version of the non-fungible token. It also has kind of a fungible crossover. I mean, how closely do you guys look at that stuff? Is that type of thing that you would look at doing yourselves or consider partnering with?
We would typically always consider partnering. So to be clear, I mean, even though there might be cases where many of our games have tokens, for instance, we're not going to be we don't intend to build out our own sort of utility token. That doesn't make sense for us. There's so many people out there doing that and sort of creating sort of incredible standards. And honestly, we don't know who's going to win yet. So we're going to be very focused on the NFT and the dApp side of things. So we want to work with everyone.
I guess we're seeing that, with Steam as well at the moment as a distribution platform. There's so many people coming, I guess, in confronting Steam and the way that they do things. It seems like every single week when I come to do the research for this show, I read another press release that says world's first. The same thing I read last week that was the world's first, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm interested on your thoughts. How do you feel like the major players are going to get involved in the blockchain space? I mean, obviously you guys can do great things on the App Store and that, which is a distribution platform, but we've seen how Microsoft has got engaged with blockchain. They're doing their royalty payments through that now. We've seen Sony put out a patent about DRM related blockchain tech. Ubisoft's kind of been quite heavily involved. Steam, I don't know, they seem to be resisting, but they've banned op skins and now wax. How do you see that whole space playing out? Can you see those guys coming in, say, the next generation of consoles and being very front foot on blockchain for all that it offers?
Well, I think what you're seeing here with all of the established players is a classic case of innovator's dilemma, right? They have the current business they need to protect. It's working really well. I mean, honestly, Steam doesn't need to change much and the money will keep rolling in. However, with this sort of potential change that is very disruptive, you have to basically say, well, if you do it this particular way, are you actually going to kill your existing business? And that's the reason why they're a little slower. And frankly, that's the opportunity for companies like ourselves to basically come into play. And if the parallels are very similar to sort of smartphone. If you think about who the smartphone giants of today, we basically in 2010, 2011, when sort of Angry Birds led the way, and then afterwards, you had new companies emerge, like Wargaming, Supercell, all that, Frogmind, of course, Animoca, all those guys. We basically became new players. And, back then, who were the giants? EA, Activision, they're still giants, but how did they maintain their relevance on mobile? They had to buy them, right? They had to bring them in. And I think this is going to be a very similar scenario here, where it's probably more risky to just simply go in and go head on and take the big bet, but rather dip your toe, and when there's a market leader, because you can afford it, just bring him in. At least that's what I think they'll do. Now, there are some companies who are willing to completely reinvent themselves, but not everyone has a Steve Jobs effect inside their own company where they're willing to just throw everything out that made money and basically start all over. Because even when you design a game, just think about it from an existing game company standpoint. You're used to basically pushing content. You're used to basically just having a controlled economy. Now you're saying maybe there's a fixed supply of tokens. And actually, once I sell out all my tokens, I don't really know what happens after that. Players have to make money from themselves by selling tokens to each other, for instance, or NFTs to each other. Or what if I basically decided to take the NFT and use it in another game? We think that's incredibly exciting because it gives ownership and value to the NFT. But is it exciting for the game company? Are they comfortable with the idea that their content actually is now going to be exported and used maybe somewhere else? To us, this is sort of Creative Commons, open source. This is where it's got to go. But most of the large game companies, actually, well, maybe all of them, never had to deal with this. So it's both a platform and a paradigm shift.
So we're also obviously a couple of years probably away before there being that game of demand as well, which I guess is the most important thing.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of reason, like you said, to resist against changing a successful model unless there's a demand for it.
And I think gamer demand will come when gamers understand that actually time invested in the game can actually mean leveraged, sort of that they can actually invest and own something that has sort of longer lasting value. I mean, I even think back, for all the people who've been playing all these games, I wish that my World of Warcraft items from back then were still something I could use somewhere else. I have an attachment. Ultima Online, right? Remember, right? If I could actually use, or my Diablo items from back then, if I actually could use it somewhere else, and someone else made a piece of content, or made a game that I could use those items, to me that's awesome. And now I'm storing value in the form of NFTs in sort of a wallet that I can basically take everywhere, right? And that's not that different from someone sort of keeping a collectible, a family heirloom, if you will, right? from generations and passing it on. I mean, that's how I see that's kind of how the digital world will go on anyway.
Well, we saw kind of Skylanders and Disney Infinity kind of experiment with that. The Amiibos kind of experiment with that a little bit. Like we've seen.
Yeah, but with actual collectibles, right?
Yeah, the actual physical collectibles.
Yes, exactly.
But the concept of taking something and doing it cross-game.
Yes.
Or using something in one game to unlock something in another game.
Yes.
I've seen some really interesting stuff with the gaming side of things where they're using smart contracts to actually allow players to set missions for other players and say, hey, you know what, I need this resource. If you go collect me this, I'm going to give you this much of my in-game money and stuff like that.
And I think it's incredibly exciting because, you know, in that environment also the artist, the creator, whether it's the NFT or the game, actually ends up having completely different kind of agency over their future. And right now, if you think about it, because of the way distribution works, creators are the ones who get squeezed the most. They actually have very little control over what's going on. The platform essentially controls their future. But if I make a piece of content and it becomes popular as a set of content, the content itself becomes a kind of platform. Yeah. Because people will start making sort of content for, so we'll start making their content to match the content that you own, the NFTs that you own. And people will come to you. And actually, I think for the customer, it's better because they're going to tailor their experiences to what you want because of what you own, as opposed to, well, let me convince you why my game is great and bring you into the experience, which may be nice, but maybe not be for everyone. And then we may not have to deal with all of this sort of, you know, we have more, I personally think there's more diversity in the game world if that happens.
We also have kind of that DRM side of things as well, so that rights management issue. And like one of the things that I've been kind of harping on about for about 10 years now is that we don't own anything anymore.
Yes.
And that's a problem. You know, when I was a kid or when I was younger, I used to have $10,000 worth of games and hardware. Yeah. If I wanted to buy a new car or something happened, I had something I could go sell.
Yes.
You know, and we're moving into an environment now where no one really owns anything that they have, so they've got no assets, so they've got nothing to pass on. I think there's an obligation, I guess, for our digital society to actually move that way.
Well, I also think that, imagine all this time that you're spending on it, right? There is no form of value that's generated on it. So there's resistance to pay as well. And there's resistance to sort of, you know, from a game developer standpoint, one of the challenges is for most of the indies out there is like, I don't get paid enough money to do this because at the end of the day, you know, the consumer is just saying, you know, $2 for the game, ooh, expensive. Well, that was the price of your coffee, but $2 for the game, hard. And that has existed since time eternal on the smartphone, right? And it's not helping the game industry. But now, if I'm spending $2 or $5 or $10, and I know that I could actually potentially sort of have a return or at least some of it back or pass it on to someone, maybe my son or my children or my friends, and it's a tangible gift as opposed to something that only exists in this walled garden, I actually think the pie will just become bigger because now everyone's a participant. And ultimately, the creators will be rewarded for it.
So I wonder if all the parents that are really annoyed with their kids playing Fortnite would be like that upset if they turn around and said, well, I just made $100, Mum.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's the reason why esports has become popular, right? Because esports has become sort of one element in which, you know, people can be rewarded for their time. Yeah. And that's why everyone's like, wow, this is really cool. The problem that I see with esports is while it's super cool to watch, the actual player themselves, unless they're elite, don't get anything. It's like, you know, you might be, it's fun to play tennis, but you don't get paid for tennis unless you're basically, one of the top players. And then who wins? It's mostly media, streaming, and again, those guys. But for the people who are participating in gaming, because of the blockchain, because of the NFTs and digital scarcity, actually you can actually create an environment where everyone can be a creator and sort of actually do what the internet had originally promised to do.
So summing up everything that we've just spoken about, we're seeing, for example, and we're expecting 2020 release for the new PlayStation, new Xbox console, whatever that happens to be. I know Xbox is experimenting with this Scarlet Cloud and everything that we've spoken about on the show before. Yeah. But where do you see non-fungible tokens being, let's say, around that late 2020?
So my hope, right, and my wish would be that non-fungible tokens will be present everywhere at that point. And I know it could take a little longer, but the point is, technologically, it doesn't really affect sort of gameplay because you basically can import your NFT into your game experience. Yep. And if we can get to a point where everyone owns some form of NFT, then I think content creators and platforms have to adopt them as well because it's just part of a better experience. Yeah. I want to basically, the attachment to an NFT is not just a function. It's the beauty, it's the emotional attachment, right? I mean, it's things that, why do people buy a certain kind of handbag? It's not the function, because it's, the function is the same. Yeah. But it's something beautiful, it's because someone touched it, it's because it means something to someone. And that is especially true in the virtual world. And so you should be able to import that experience to any gaming experience that you like as part of your identity. And I think that, to me, would be sort of awesome if the platforms adopt that. And I think if gamers understand that, wait, actually I can do that, then they'll force the platforms to adopt that, because it's just a better experience for everyone.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Great.
So one last question for you.
Please.
We've spoken about the way that these kind of these assets and cross games and using fungible token assets across video games and so forth. But do these types of game experiences lend themselves to the concept of a traditional sequel? Like, would we ever see a Cryptokitties 2, or would Cryptokitties just kind of go on for as long as it goes on?
I know, is that the equivalent of saying maybe there's a hard fork in the future for a game like that?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, it depends, right? I think for certain type of things it will just continue, but instead the gaming experience might be an adaptation from the same company or maybe another company. So there could be a sequel. But it's a bit like when you look at, for instance, popular series out there, and you look at fan fiction, right? You now have this sort of blossoming fan fiction world talking about, oh, the movie ended, or the book ended, but let's just continue the storyline and keep going. That's how I kind of see it in the future, and I think to me, that's sort of beautiful and wonderful. But will the main company behind it actually want to create a sequel? It completely can, whether this is hard fork style, or just say, you know what, I'm going to sort of take what there is and put it in. But and put it into this new world, or add or enhance it. But the main thing that's different here, of course, is that because it's an NFT, there's value. Like, one of the things when we looked at sort of bundling Cryptokitties in our discussion with HTC, we're like, okay, so we want to bundle some Cryptokitties with HTC. That's going to cost us about $30 for 2 cats. I was like, wait, what? Because they're still trying to get their hand around the fact that actually we have to buy the kitties off the market, because you can't just print them, right? Yeah. Which is exactly why it's valuable. So when you're actually buying a phone with a bundled kitty, you're actually having real value.
Right? Yeah. It's like an accessory.
It's like an accessory. It's like a physical accessory. And that concept, even though people are doing it, sometimes they just sort of forget at that moment that actually, wait, I can't just sort of copy it and make it free. No, it's not. That's the whole point, right? So that means that's the same thing when you're thinking about it in terms of sequel. So the sequel has to be worth it too. Yeah. It has to be worth taking that cost over, transferring that cost over, which means if it's big enough, it's worth it.
And making sure you don't nerf the value of everything that's already in the market.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, that was extremely interesting chat. Thank you very much for coming on Video Games and the Blockchain.
Pleasure.
And that was Yatsu, everybody. And the Sandbox, do we have a date for the Sandbox, the new version of the Sandbox?
Next year, 2019. Just follow the blog and you'll find some more information.
Will it come to consoles?
Can't talk about it right now.
Oh, that's a yes, guys. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.